You see, the first point is that there has been a narrative, which is quite worrying in recent times, that all the gains we've made in gold production and sale and the foreign exchange receipts thereof have come about because of an upsurge in Galamsey. You see, that narrative does not provide any credible evidence to back it. For the avoidance of doubt, there is no government policy to purchase gold from Galamsey. What it is that over the period, for the decades that we've mined gold, there has never been a system to trace where it comes from. But purchase from large-scale mining firms, represented by my friend Ken here, and small-scale mining firms are all lawful. Because small-scale mining is a lawful activity. Sometimes we speak as though it is coterminous with Galamsey. It is not. The state of Ghana made laws and allowed for small-time players to participate in the extraction of gold. And after, it makes sense. We cannot have a situation where, invariably, because of the financial might and skill of external gold producers, they are the ones that dominate our markets. We cannot have a situation where Ghanaians are prevented or stopped from also participating. But of course, they must meet certain standards that does not impinge adversely on the environment and in the long run affect us. So the law allows for small-scale operators to operate. The state of Ghana cannot only purchase gold from large-scale producers, because they also, as part of the agreements, are allowed to market their own gold. And therefore, there's nothing wrong with government buying gold from small-scale miners. Because we have not had a system to trace it, one cannot exactly tell if some elements within the illegal mining fraternity also find their way in there. It is for that reason that through law, a body has been put in place called Gold Board. I was in Parliament when we sat through the night to approve the Gold Board bill. And part of their mandate is to ensure that illicit gold does not get into what we export. In fact, it is in our own interest that the global community does not perceive us as selling gold that comes from illegal mines. Because mind you, and I'm sure Ken is aware, there are many watchdogs. In fact, only last week, about 2 days ago, I received correspondence from a group of foreign journalists who track these things and have sent us questionnaires to answer specific questions relating to the source of our gold and all that. Now, if we get negative publicity as to the source of our gold, the gains we are making in the international gold market will collapse precipitously. The LBMA has what they call the good delivery list. You must get onto that list to market your gold in a way that benefits you. So it is not in anybody's interest. It's not definitely in Ghana's interest or the government's interest to go and purchase gold from Galamsey. But these things are traced. There are all manner of sophisticated technologies that they can use to trace where the gold comes from. So I think that the blanket statements that are being made, that we are buying gold from Galamsey, and that is why we are having an increase or an upsurge in gold production and sales thereof, must be limited, and it must be based on absolute facts. The other issue too that I need to raise is that in all of this, political will is important. And Alfred, I can tell you with absolute certainty that President Mahama is intrepid in the fight against Galamsey. Indeed, both publicly and privately. He has told everybody in the NDC that as far as he's concerned, nobody is too big to fall in the NDC government or in the NDC party if they get involved in Galamsey.
I see.
And I repeat, he says nobody is too big to fall. It is the reason why very high-ranking officials in our party, our vice chairman and our organizer, these are powerful people within the scheme of things in the NDC. When the president heard about allegations or claims that they were involved in some activity relating to Galamsey, he ordered the Attorney General to commission an inquiry. That inquiry is ongoing. The Attorney General briefed all of us only last week's Friday, when we held the CSO engagement. That even beyond the initial claims that had been made against the two gentlemen, he has received further allegations and that he is broadening the scope. And I can assure you that once that investigation is completed, if it is found that in fact the allegations are true, action will be taken. Again, since 2022, we have known of the existence of the CID inquiry into the matter relating to Chebawuntumi. I know his lawyer is here. So, of course, he has the right to defend his client to the hilt, and he can assert his client's innocence. We as a state must accept that, so that a lawful judicial process is used to determine. So I'm not going to sit here and pronounce anybody guilty. But at least Ken and his colleagues in the CSO space, and exactly,
in fact,
do know of the existence.
Of the four petitioners.
Do know of the existence of this CID inquiry, which has been there since 2022. And you know that when the Akunta mining issue came up, the president of the day publicly cleared wound to me. He said that
I asked him.
He said that as far as they were not engaged in any wrongdoing. Meanwhile, at the same time, the CID had compiled a report on the basis of the allegations that have been made, the current Attorney General has been bold enough to prepare a docket based on the CID's investigation, and it's from the basis upon which Mr. Wuntumi and 2 or 3 others have been charged only last week. There's talk about going after kingpins, but they don't come bigger than people within the political space. And so if a president comes to power and he has a will to launch inquiries into both persons in his party and persons outside of his party who are alleged, and I use the word advisedly, to be engaged in Galamsey, it is an indication that there's a departure from the past when the tendency was to defend the party's interests. So we also do know that Galamsey has existed for decades. When Martin mentioned his dalliance with Galamsey in his youthful days, it is only an indication that it's something that has existed. The scale on which it was being done was not necessarily harmful, so we didn't pay much attention. They were using precautions. So these are desperate young people wanting to make a quick buck to fend for themselves. So they'll go and dig here and there. It wasn't a problem. But over time, some greedy, selfish, criminal elements found out it was a way that they could make quick money. And so they invested, recruited people, gave them sophisticated equipment. In the last 8 to 10 years, this has festered. There was not significant action or the mastering of political will to deal with it. We have the Frimpong Boateng report, for instance, in which a whole minister for the environment, who the president tasked with addressing Galamsey, says that there were government officials, there were party officials, there were high-ups in society who were involved in this operation. Even that report was concealed for many years until it was leaked towards the 2024 elections and it became an issue. Mr. Frimpong Boateng is heard on tape saying that elements within his political party had approached him, that Galamsey was a major source of financing for his party, and therefore they should be allowed to engage in Galamsey. We didn't see significant action being taken. Indeed, when we came to power, the situation was so dire, and I understand why there were heightened calls for a state of emergency in the run-up to the 2024 elections. Look, the situation was so dire that armed bandits, terrorists, and Kofi alluded to that, that if we get to a situation where these elements engage in Galamsey, resort to the use of arms as a way of fending off the state, then we are in trouble. In fact, we got to that situation just before the previous government left office. Because there were 9 forest reserves that were controlled by bandits and terrorists. We also do know that there are foreigners involved in this. Indeed, the NIMOS operation which you highlight, the one that arrested the Chinese nationals, that same day, they also stormed Esipon. There was a company that was engaged in mining, but NIMOS had suspicion that the operations necessarily were not in line with lawful procedure. So they questioned them. They found some Burkinabes. So NIMOS has actually given them a few days to produce whatever permit or licenses they have. Failure.
So the Burkinabes, they do the cyanidation.
Yes.
They bring them
failure to do so is going to. In fact, NIMOS has actually seized the excavators, pending the production of relevant authorization to do so. But I was making the point that the situation that Kofi alluded to, we got there before this government came to power.
Interesting.
Now, those 9 forest reserves have been taken back. And you notice that when we did that, some elements tried to go back. Immediately, they were apprehended. So, again, an issue has been raised about whether or not the state is projecting power. Only last Tuesday.
No, before you go there, you see, Kofi makes a point about, for instance, if you are in the community, NIMOS, fine. But there are DCs and MCs.
I'll come to all of that. I'll come to all of that.
Who chair the security councils in the area.
I'll come to all of that.
Why are you not holding them responsible?
I'll come to all of that. Alfred, the president who is willing to go after his vice chairman and his organizer and other big people in society has no fear dealing with MCs that he has appointed.
So those, where this is happening...
Listen, if evidence ever emerges of the complicity, what Kofi calls benign negligence, and active involvement of MCs, DCs, regional ministers, or any form of government official, the president would act.
To the extent that this is happening, it takes 9 months to even go there.
No, you see,
so does that
we must understand what is happening. We have spoken about the allure of good and how powerful it is, and the money is involved. Being human, it is not unusual for people to be compromised along the chain. So, in fact, if you follow NIMOS carefully, the way that they operate so that there are many people on the ground where they operate who are unaware of their operations before they strike. In fact, there's a funny video that the head of NIMOS, Ken Abua, shared with me, where there was a gentleman engaging, or there was a group engaging illegal mining somewhere in the Upper West region. When he led the team to storm the place, the gentleman said, "Oh, Bamasa, at least inform me that you were coming." Whereupon he ordered the immediate demolition of all structures and the leveling of the sand that they are heaped to refine another. So it shows you that in the past, there were people who were leaking information to them on the operations of anti-Galamsey task force. So now, NIMOS strikes, sometimes they don't involve people on the ground. Again, let me put it on record. I think it was Martin who made the inquiry.
Yes.
That we know everywhere that there is Galamsey operations. In fact, I have seen the NIMOS operational documents. I'm not permitted for security reasons to disclose some things. The way they are operating, they have capacity to hit every point.
At the same time.
Well, it doesn't even have to be at the same time. It doesn't necessarily need to be at the same time. No, it doesn't necessarily need to be at the same time. It just has to happen within a reasonable time frame. And they have the capacity and they've mapped it out and they will do it. Ken raised the issue of a timeline when the president met the CSOs. It is something that governments are aware of. I have a fair idea, and it's been discussed, as to when we will see very significant improvements in what we are doing. But you know that in this business, you need to hedge a bit sometimes, so that you don't overcommit yourself and create expectation that you are not able to meet and then generate further credibility crisis. But I can assure you that there are timelines. And the way that NIMOS is going, if they go that way, within reasonable time, we will have a handle on this thing. The other